starting, and we're started. Hey everyone, we're here, we are online. Welcome to today's live stream for Codecademy Pro members. Ooh, gotta pause this aspect. I should be muted. Oh, you're all, you know the drill. Everybody's already saying where everybody's from. Thanks so much.
Well, where are people from?
Where? Oh gosh,
we can't see it.
I know. That's. I get to read it out. I get to read it out. We have people coming all the way from New Jersey right now. Hello from Red Bank, New Jersey, Portugal / the Netherlands. I'd love to know more about that story.
Las Vegas.
Yeah, DC, Victoria. Yeah. Wow. Estonia. This is good.
Estonia.
Spain for the win, but working in Cyprus, not bad. Either place, not bad. Okay, so you're tuning in from everywhere. We are tuning in right now from our headquarters in New York City. Natalia, it looks like we've got Robot Natalia with us today. If you're just tuning in, today's live stream is on talking about your coding skills, be it on phone screens, on your resume, or in networking opportunities and events. We have John Samp and Natalia Rodriguez Nunez. Thank you. Yes, and I'm so sorry. Catherine too. Yeah. That's what happens when I get nervous. It happens. So I'm not going to do much more talking. I'll be your moderator today. My name's Alyssa, Vigil. If you're part of any of the community spaces, you have probably seen me. Hopefully we've chatted. If we haven't, let's do that. It's my favorite thing. I will drop some links into the chat throughout today's event. Check them out. One of them will be a way to join the CLL Slack community. One of them will be a feedback form. Your feedback is super important. We want to do more of these, and we want to do them in a way that's very valuable to you all. So, some ground rules. I feel like so far everything is always so positive and so awesome that I almost don't need to say this, but I will. This is this is a positive and reinforcing community and this positive reinforcing event. Let's keep it positive. Mm-hmm. Thanks everyone. Let's start with Natalia.
Should I just go say like a little bit about me?
Yeah, a little bit about yourself, what you do here, and anything about your past experience that you think is relevant.
Okay, cool. My name's Natalie Rodriguez Nunez. I'm from Mexico, and I'm a curriculum developer here with the Codecademy curriculum team. And so what that means is that I write and I code and I teach, and I studied literature and computer science, and that's kind of what I bring to the table.
My name is Catherine. I lead the data science team here. That means I analyze all the data about all of our great learners. Before coming to a tech startup, I worked at mostly large corporate companies. So I worked for an airline before this, doing data analysis, and before that, like a chain of gyms. And before that, I was in college, and actually before that, I was a bike mechanic for a while. People always think that's funny. I think that's cool. Bike mechanic. Yeah, after college, I graduated kind of close to a recession, so I was just like, I'm gonna take whatever work I can get, and also don't really want to work in an office after being stuck in a college library for like 4 years. So, yeah. Did the bike mechanic thing for a while I was like learning more data analysis programming stuff on the side, and also working for like the New York City elections, doing forecasting there. So I did like a couple of like part-time jobs for about 1.5 years after college before I started working full-time.
That's awesome. I mean, bike mechanic to data scientist, like amazing.
She does the inner workings of things. So,
yeah, I like knowing how things work. I think it's all tied together.
Yeah, we've talked about how it's helped you to like mention in certain spaces that are professional and data science related to say that you were a bike mechanic. Because it's like the cool edge and like personal brand to the professional.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about it because people think I'm cooler than I actually am.
Not true. Catherine is awesome.
I think the value that it brings is like, I think everyone should work like a service job at some point in their life just because you pick up a lot of important skills. Like working with people and working with customers. I have customers here at this company.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm John. I'm a software engineer here. I used to write curriculum for Codecademy. I wrote a fair amount of our JavaScript course. It's been refactored a lot, but that's probably like my claim to fame. Speaking of service jobs, I used to work at the Apple store at the Genius Bar, and I had to help people with their broken iPhones. That will teach you a lot about like humanity.
Yes.
I can only imagine.
But yeah, I'm a self-taught coder. I got my degree in biology and genetics, and then taught myself how to code years later. So I've been coding for like 3 years now. It's been great.
That's fantastic. There's a lot of experience here. You may, if you're taking a look at the chat box, see that I asked all you about your experience too. Let's get all of the experience on the table and see what we can learn from each other for the next 45 or so minutes. All right. So the first question, the first 3 questions or so today are ones that we put together from your input already and with this team. And the first one is usually one that I've seen be asked last. So we're flipping that script and we're going to start with it first. What's one thing that you wish you'd known, past tense, wish you knew it in the past when it came to networking, resume writing, or conducting a successful phone screen? I'm not calling on anyone for the rest of the time. You can call on people. I'm not.
In terms of phone screens, I can talk to that a little bit and like getting through a coding question. Generally, you're going to be asked something that you just don't know the answer to. And since you don't know, it's really easy to be like, oh God, what do I do? So like the best advice I can give people is like, think out loud of like different possible solutions and just try to think of like a bunch of options. Like the goal is always like, what are like different kinds of options I can do? And generally you'll think of one that's like, this is maybe not performant. Like I don't want to write like, 54 loops in a row or something because that looks bad. But like even doing that and then like whittling it down and making more decisions and showing someone how you're making decisions like helps so much. And so that's something I've definitely learned. Like, keep on talking through your ideas, even if they're bad ideas. Say them anyway, and like keep on going through your thought process because that's a lot more meaningful than like doing nothing. It's hard to do. It takes practice. Definitely, like if you're trying to figure out a coding question for an engineering interview or something, go through some problems online and actually talk out loud while you do it, because it's really hard to talk out loud when you're used to like sitting silently at your computer just thinking.
That's a good one.
Getting on phone screens. Do we want to stick with phone screens or do we want to bounce around to networking?
I'll do networking because I really struggle with networking. And I think that comes from, some cultural background with it feeling like bragging when you're talking about yourself.
Ooh.
And that always ends up feeling really inauthentic. And so something I wish I'd known was how to do that in a way that felt true to me earlier. Because whenever I have to like talk about myself, to like a stranger and like tell them kind of my experience and my background and what I've done, I just like always ended up selling myself short because I was like, oh, I don't want to take too much space and say too much. But I think separating and learning how to do that and understanding that's part of the process and that it's necessary helped me be more comfortable with it. And so I wish I'd known that. Like they want to hear from you and you also want to hear from them. The minute you realize that like when someone's sharing their background, it doesn't come off as humble bragging, but rather as like an opportunity to connect and maybe collaborate. Then you get more comfortable with the idea of it.
Was there like some process you went through to make yourself more comfortable with that, or is it's still uncomfortable?
It's still uncomfortable. Yeah, I feel like it's still uncomfortable, but I'm a lot better about it. Going to meetups, some of them were better facilitated than others, and then noticing and checking in internally, like why was this one more comfortable for me? Like that helped. And a lot of the times it was because people weren't just like telling you about themselves, they were asking you to.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. So I think one of the things that sticks with me is I went to, so the first data science conference I ever went to, the job that I was at the time wasn't supportive, so I paid my way in, like out of pocket, and like showed up and I was like, why am I here? Like had severe imposter syndrome and just felt so like lonely in this room full of people. And the organizer came up to me and was like, oh, you work for my favorite airline. And I thought he was just like you know, like being schmoozy or whatever, and like not being genuine. But then his dad, so his parents came up to me separately. So his dad came up to me and was like, "Oh my God, you work for Jared's favorite airline." And that was the moment I knew that this person was just like coming from this place of like not wanting something out of me, but just like actually trying to make a real connection. So I think that's the way to approach networking too. Like, even though to a certain extent, yes, you're like hoping to find a job or make a connection, like approach it from the stance of like you're trying to build an actual relationship, even if it's like a temporary, like try to get to know the person. If you feel like the person's trying to get to know you, that's also a good sign. Like it can be just being in a room full of strangers can be nerve-wracking. So if you try to like build some sort of like connection in the moment, it just goes a long way over immediately jumping to like, are you hiring or something like that. Yeah, and so the following year he got me to speak at the conference. So like it did work. Like he got something out of it and I got something out of it. But I think I would have felt really weird if he came to me immediately and was like, "Oh my God, I love that airline. Will you speak at my conference?" You know what I mean?
And now she speaks at conferences all the time.
And
She just had a 1-hour lecture.
We will humble back for you.
Yeah, I still get another thing for him. And I go on like bike rides with this guy who's like now one of my friends. So yeah, networking you can make real friends that way. And it's like really helpful. Like think of it as like you're trying to make friends, not make like job connections.
Yeah.
That helps build authenticity. I think I'm gonna add to that one too. For networking type opportunities, the background there is that I moved to New York City from San Francisco Bay Area, and when doing that, I knew no one. So it really was like I needed to go to the networking events, which many of you may be in that position too. Maybe not geographically, but breaking into a new industry, you might not have those connections, and you might have to actually go make them. What I wish I'd known, what I figured out along the way, was that just listening to people at these events, people actually really do like talking about themselves when it doesn't feel like there's this, when it's a means to an end. And like giving that space for them to speak about themselves in that way makes it possible to make more of a connection that is more authentic, I think, and less focused on what am I going to get out of this in the immediate term. So that was my takeaway. Question 2, and I see the questions coming through already. I'm taking some down. We will do our best to get to as many of them as we can. Can't promise all of them, but like I said, we'll do our best. If you're just joining us now, we are having a chat on how to talk about your coding skills. Thank you. Question 2. Was there anything that felt counterintuitive? This one's on resumes. Was there anything that felt counterintuitive about creating a strong resume? John's actually standing up for a moment to save the day because I think we're about to lose battery power.
Oh, cool.
And he fixed it.
Woo!
Yay!
I like pushing buttons.
Genius bar.
It's all experience.
Yes.
Not traditional experience.
I mean, we actually don't have an IT person in the office.
Everybody's job.
We all do. Yeah, right.
I think right before the live stream started, we were talking a little bit about the answer to this question. We were talking about something counterintuitive to me, at least, was that I was like in literature, which is a creative field. That's like one of the areas I studied, and then I was in computer science, which is a very like, you could think of it as a little bit more dry, although it's changing. And I had 2 resumes. The one that I had for like my journalism internships was super like design heavy. It had colors. It had like just it's completely different format than the one that I had for my computer science stuff. And one time I tried to port that literature creative format to my computer science one, and it was for a class assignment where the teacher asked us to make a resume. And I actually got points ducked off my final score because my resume wasn't like up to par with what she wanted, because it was like 12-point Times New Roman, like keywords and all of that. And I was really defensive when that happened, but then I learned from her that like the reason she did that was because there's search engines that crawl resumes.
Yeah.
And like if you don't format it a certain way with a heading that is like clearly skills or programming languages or stuff like that, then the web crawlers won't be able to pick up your skills and like you won't get to the top of the pile. And that was a little bit counterintuitive to me. Like I didn't know there was so much happening in the back end. But there was a way to like consolidate both formats to still have it feel like me on the page, but have it work and function with like all those fancy.
Yeah, we were talking about that a bit earlier, and Catherine, you had some really like perfect advice.
Yeah. So I've been doing. So I think especially when I was working for a large company, like I worked on resume, or I was on a hiring committee there. So I've been doing technical hiring for a while, and like thousands of people will apply to some of these jobs. So you have to go through these resumes, and after a while, a lot of the resumes start to look the same. So as a data scientist, like I actually borrowed a lot from how designers approach making their resumes. Like designers tend to add like pops of color, focus really on like layout or efficient layout and like typography, so the fonts they use, stuff like that, to make sure it's readable and also visually appealing. So I put like a data visualization in mind, just because for working in data, like it helps to have just, it's just like a pie chart. It's kind of gimmicky if you really think about it. It doesn't really tell you anything, but it makes it, it just adds like a pop of color and makes it stand out from a pile of resumes. But yeah, going off of what Natalie also said about keywords, I was really shocked to learn about that my senior year of college. From one of my friends at another college, she told me the Career Center told her about including like keywords in smaller font sizes. So I actually incorporated that into the design of my resume of just like, a lot of keywords are kind of meaningless after a while, but you still want to include it just so it can get picked up by some of these systems. So I include some of the keywords in smaller font around the chart. It's hard to, it would be nice to like show it. But I think, is there a link to my website?
I think that speaks to like something else I was raising about resumes, which is that you should have different versions.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't just have one standard copy of your resume. You should try to tailor it based on what you know about the company.
Yeah.
So like I worked for the Museum of Natural History before this, and they're like a really old institution, and the way that they do their recruiting is way more like standard, where it could actually count against you if you have a pop of color and you're like deviating away from the standard black and white one pager.
Yeah, I think the happy medium that I found, that I got this recommendation from my cousin who's a lot older. So I think in the past, resumes used to be like black and white, Times New Roman, and he was just like, a lot of companies will still print your resume out, so you don't want to use too much color to the point where like if you print it out, it won't be visible. So he recommended using like either blues or greens or colors that can still print well, and maybe just like make your name. Like a lot of people who experiment with this will just like change the color of your name, because it doesn't really matter if your name is a different color.
Yeah.
So things like that. It's like very small things to like kind of game the system. Because at the end of the day, like there is still a human reviewing resumes, and if you can get yours to like stand out a little bit, it goes a long way.
Yeah, I don't know if we have like, I think you guys did a phenomenal job of answering that.
All right. I see the questions coming through. Thank you very much. Still looking forward to more. Last question from me. Okay, this one is also networking event specific. What's the right balance between talking and listening at a networking event? And I feel like I already went into this one a little bit as far as leading with listening, but I'd love to hear from three of you.
I would echo leading with listening, and then like once you're listening and picking up on maybe some similar interests or like similar backgrounds, then you can bring up that part when you speak about yourself. Like make a direct connection to something they've said, so that you're not just like listening, you're answering, engaging.
Yeah, I think I think one thing to also like for me, it was really hard to think of a way to like approach people, just because I'm not like I'm somewhat extroverted, but only around my friends. So around people I don't know, I tend to be more introverted. And a good opener is just being like, tell me about yourself, or why are you here, or something. Like, I think where I've heard it go wrong is I've gone to data science meetups where like someone has come up to me and been like, hey, do you use R? And I'm just like, yeah. Like, to me, that kind of backfired where it felt condescending almost. Also, that's happened at times where I was a speaker at the meetup and I was just like, did you? So a simple way is just like, oh, tell me about yourself, or like, why are you here, or I don't know, like if there's food at the meetup, I feel like that's a good segue. I don't know, but it doesn't have to be. I think just like trying to open the conversation in some way that feels more casual, it ends up lending itself to like creating a better conversation. And
There's, I forget, it was Brian Park, which he works with our product team. He's a project manager.
Yeah.
Product manager.
Yeah.
He told me he went to allowed to ask, what do you do? You were allowed to ask like all other questions, but except that one. And I thought that was interesting. I mean, like maybe try that approach, like asking like, what do you do with your time? And that could be creepy too, but but like thinking outside the box with the opener, could lead to like more engaging conversation.
I actually really like that. I think we could make that also a personal challenge when going to meetups too. Like maybe it's not that it sets them rules, but personal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all those things. Like starting a conversation is great, and I think also ending the conversation at a certain point is something you do.
An exit strategy.
Yeah. I went to a meetup recently, and it's been a while since I've been to one, and I figured out that the way people connect these days, people are like, let's exchange information, and I was like, ooh, how are we? Are they gonna ask for my number? Are they gonna ask for my email address? Like, did I tell them my Twitter or something? I don't know. And then like everybody there, every conversation I had, they were like, oh, let me find you on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah, people use LinkedIn these days. Like I've been in the shop for like 2 years. It's been a while. So it's almost like, you know, like work dating with people. You're like, find me on LinkedIn, and it's like professional. It's not weird. They don't gain access to like all of your social media posts from every like time you've watched The Bachelor for the past like 3 seasons. And it's great. So like make sure your LinkedIn's updated so you can connect with people.
Yeah. And that could be like a conversation ender too.
Yeah, that's how
you talk. You're like, oh, what can I do?
Yeah, we should connect on LinkedIn. Like it's so nice to meet you.
That's a wonderful ender. Because that I will just talk to somebody, or you know, listen for 30 minutes, for 30 whole minutes. Yes, exactly. Of a 90-minute meetup. Speaking of meetups, a question from Red Bank Records: where can we find these meetups?
Meetup.com.
Yes.
It also depends on cities.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I think Meetup is pretty good. I think a lot of, specific to programming meetups, there are a lot of like chapters that are specific to cities.
Okay.
So like women in machine learning and data science, like they'll have chapters in like New York, San Francisco, Seattle. But there are also like a lot of smaller cities that will have, or towns that have meetups. It just ends up being like fewer people. But that helps. And also if you look at larger national organizations, if there isn't a chapter in your town or city, you can start one.
Ooh,
Yeah.
And that's something that you can pretty immediately put on your resume.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. The thing that's helpful with that is like, this is really common. So R has a really big community, R, the programming language. And they have like national support if you want to start a local chapter. So it helps to look for something that already kind of exists. So you have the resources to figure out like how you start it.
So like, what if there like aren't any immediate meetups? I don't really know much about the topic, so I don't really want to start a meetup necessarily. Like, are there other options for learners to meet with other people in the industry?
There's always online.
Yeah.
There's always the world of online communities.
And like, how do you find that stuff?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question.
So learn art university.
No, yeah, you can watch the video.
Yeah. I don't think, can we turn this live stream into like a meetup? Could people just like share their link? I don't know. I'm going up.
There is no script.
Okay.
And I love that idea. I think that we might even close today's meetup with a share of your LinkedIn profile in the chat. That gets saved. We can take a look at everybody's LinkedIn profile and compare notes, learn something from looking at it. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, awesome.
Wow. Yes, that's what we're gonna do. That's how. Yeah, we'll close today with that. But we're not closing yet. We have questions coming from the audience. Please keep them coming. Thank you. You asked something about finding online communities. There are some, and this goes beyond Codecademy at this point. There are some really great learner communities, whether it be for coding or for being a bike mechanic. There are some great learning communities popping up on Facebook right now.
Yeah.
Facebook groups. Facebook groups in general are something that Facebook is investing in more, and it's showing in the way that the tools are really working to bring people together. I'm a big fan of the Facebook group Visa Days.
And then I know there's like a bunch of other things, like on Twitter, there's like weekly meetups where people like tweet out questions. Twitter chats.
God,
There's so many different ways
forever.
online you can interact with other people.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you find all these things? So there's like Twitter chats, there's like Ask Me Anythings, AMAs,
Instructables.
Oh yeah, Reddit.
Yeah.
Reddit is like, huge. So I think there are different forms. So I think Twitter is great for memes about workflows. So like data science Twitter and like software engineering Twitter, right? It's all about like jokes about your workflow. Reddit is great if you have like a specific problem that you're working through. Reddit and Stack Overflow are really great.
Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
A bit of K+1 next.
Yeah, if you are stuck on a problem, those are great for people to go into detail. It's a lot harder to debug someone and like, I know is there still a 140 character? I don't know. I think it's just harder to debug.
It's 280 now. Real
It's
innovation.
not okay for yeah. And then I think Facebook is I'm part of this group called Tech Ladies. So I associate Facebook with like stories about people. I feel like people tend to open up more on Facebook. And
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Here's my story. Here's what I'm trying to pivot to. Do you have advice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's NC WIT group too. That's a really big one. You're female identifying.
NC WIT.
National Center for Women in Technology. But it's a huge Facebook group with like thousands of really awesome members.
And while on the subject of plugging Facebook groups, I'm not affiliated, not promoting in any way, except for I like it, Moms in Tech. For all parents in tech, really. So getting an understanding of the experience of what it is to have a technical job as a parent, as so many of us are. Brian Weeks asked a question that a lot of people were really hoping that we take here. So let's find that question for us. I've taken coding courses in college, but never received a computer science degree. Received a BS in marketing. How can I talk about Codecademy education as relevant as college?
That's a great question. I mean, so I'm also a self-taught coder. I took no computer science in, you as well.
Neither of us have CS degrees.
I was like a biology major. I went to higher education. I was recruiting high school students to go to college. And then I like taught myself how to code, and I was like, how do I tell people I like actually know what I'm doing? And I talked with this, so a recruiter reached out to me and was like, hey, like we saw that you did some JavaScript stuff on GitHub. Would you want to interview possibly? Like just send us your resume. And I sent my resume, and they emailed back like 2 days later, and they're like, hey, listen, this resume is not the best. Maybe you could change it in certain specific ways. And it was so helpful. I mean, I've never had a recruiter do this with me before, but she was like, yeah, just like list projects you've done, like the technologies you've done them in, and then link to your projects. And make sure like the links are very obvious, because that's what a lot of tech recruiting positions will look at. They'll be like, here's what I know. Also, like look at these like fun creative projects this person's done. And that's like what will get you in the door initially with at least some places. I don't know how you bridge the gap between bike mechanic to data scientist.
Bike mechanic to data scientist. Yeah. So I did. So I studied sociology in college, so there was a quantitative element to it, but I didn't. When I was in college, data science wasn't, even now, data science isn't a common degree. Like a lot of colleges don't offer data science degrees yet. I think my college just started offering it as a minor. So I took a class on R and sort of like research, like how to structure research and how to write about it, and some statistics, but I didn't take like hard statistics classes. So a lot of that stuff I had to learn on my own. And then SQL is another programming language I have to use every day, and that is like barely taught in schools. So that I learned on the job. Yeah, I agree with projects. It's a good way to show what you've done. I think where it relates to data science is like there's a lot of public data sets out there, so you can analyze some data and write a short write up about it, your analysis, and put that up online somewhere. If you don't have a website, you can put it up on like a blog or Tumblr or somewhere.
Medium.
Yeah, Medium. Just somewhere, like have something you can point to.
And I know, like, we talked in the past about the importance of telling a story around the project of which you've made, not just like, here's the thing, but the reason behind it. And that's probably even more important with data science, since it's, I think, less visual sometimes.
Yeah, I try to always include something that people are visual. So I think for projects, when it comes to job applications, particularly, it makes sense to have something that's visually appealing that people can look at.
Like if you have a personal website projects tab with a bunch of images and write-ups about the project.
I think it's also where it relates to the marketing degree, like don't short sell yourself, or like don't, until it becomes an issue, don't make it an issue. So don't frame it like, oh, I have a marketing degree, but frame it like, I have a marketing degree and I also learned computer science skills. So this enables me to know how like businesses work. So it's really like how you, like having my sociology degree has never been an issue, even though I've always been nervous that it would be, just because I've always framed it like it taught me to work with numbers and contextualize it within like society. And that's kind of what data science is. And I think the same can be said for a lot of liberal arts degrees or non-CS degrees. You can say like, I understand how the world works, or how businesses work.
I was trying to think of like specifically from my CS background what could translate to validate Codecademy. So the professors made us do whenever we were applying to a company was there was like a field in your resume called relevant coursework, and you would put like the CS 402 numerical analysis or like algorithms and data structures, stuff like that. If you knew that the place you were applying for used a certain language, then you would say like functional programming in Haskell. You can do that. You can have a relevant coursework section in your resume and then mention the names of lessons or modules in our current catalog. And you don't even have to say Codecademy. You could just say like relevant coursework, like JavaScript objects. Or if you know that you're applying to a place with a React code base, then you could say like React, Advanced React Part 2.
So like a section on your resume specifically for
relevant coursework.
And I think that's a good title too.
Yeah, I think continued learning has become so common that it's not, I think people are less likely to penalize you and more likely to see it as a positive thing that you're learning something online or continuing to learn after college than hold it against you.
Yeah, like one of the best things coming in as a junior developer at my first development job was I had been studying Angular at the time, and it was quite new. It was like Angular 1 point something, and now it's like Angular 6 or something. So it was a while ago. And like I knew the basics of it, and everyone at the company was kind of learning it, and it was really hot at the time. And I came in like knowing a lot more than some of my colleagues because of that, because it was a newer framework. And so like that'll make you also really popular. Like if you have the opportunity to like learn the base language, but then like learn a more current framework, I think that really helps you like make a project with that, like really helps you be like, I'm on the cutting edge of things. And then as you get into the profession, like you're gonna learn much deeper about like the underlying language and like how development works. That really helps.
Yeah, I agree.
This is all great advice, and I feel like it's also touching on a question from Marlon Braga. He said, I worked in the hospitality industry for 5 years, from busboy, waiter, bartender, to brand ambassador, position in retail, so not a sales position. How do I make that sound meaningful to the industry? And I'm assuming when you say the industry, I'm assuming you mean the tech industry, and that's what we're discussing today. Yeah. And I feel like so much of everything that we were just discussing.
Yeah, I think you could frame it. I don't know what you're interested in. I would want to hear more. Like if you're interested in working at the intersection of hospitality and tech, like if you would like to be like either a software engineer or a data scientist for maybe some hotel, like or something like that, then I think you could really do a lot to marry it. And whenever you're talking about yourself and your background, you could say like, you know, not only do I bring the technical skills, I also have background and context and what it's like to be on the ground, like working the different titles that you listed. But you could also, I mean, I would want to know more from you, like what made you interested in hospitality, like what did you love most about it? And then in your personal bio on your website, you could mention like, you know, maybe some of the things you loved about it. And that could shape your professional brand too, because you're not only just another applicant, now you bring this special skill, which is people skills, hospitality skills.
Yes. Yes. People skills are so important.
Yeah.
And probably the hardest part of my day every day is communicating with people effectively to get things done. And sure, you've done a lot of like many different situations working with people. So that's like a huge plus you should be saying to everybody when you're interviewing or talking to people about jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's also, so I don't know, or I don't know, again, like what field this person's trying to go into, but I know of a bunch of people who are able to pivot from like service work or hospitality over to support engineering roles, which are really common. So that's basically like technical customer support, where a lot of companies, especially like B2B companies, so companies that sell like software, will have support people who are expected to be able to fix what they can or debug what they can before they escalate the issue. So that's a really great field to try to pivot into, I think, if you're looking for like an entry-level role that has requires a lot of those skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll put in another plug for support engineer as a career path. I think so. I'm community manager now, not in a technical role per se, but always working in the tech industry. I served coffee for 6 years. I was a makeup artist in the retail industry. So I did a lot of the work. I worked for a catering company. I did a lot of the work that you have also done, Marlon. And I think that one way that I've been able to talk about that work and make it meaningful, as you said, is to focus it when you get on that phone screen, when you show up to that interview, focus on how you took your interactions with customers and informed a new process. How did you take what you learned from building up all those people skills, from being with the customers all day, and learn something that could really support the business with that experience and with that information? That's going to be valuable no matter what role you move on to. We have about 5 minutes left.
Woo!
It flew by.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my best to get these next few questions in. Thank you. If you are just joining us now, we are here talking today about how to talk about your coding skills. You mentioned personal brand. This is going off script. Do we want to talk a little bit about what it is to tell a story? You mentioned telling a story about your projects.
Mm-hmm.
What about telling a story about ourselves? Do we have any experience here?
I like to think I do, because I feel like my bio itself is very much like, and this is a tricky line to walk, just because like if you bring in your identity to your professional setting, like it can be whenever you get turned down from a profession, it can be like very hurtful. But I think it can also be very helpful, and it can help you end up at the right place, because if you really value certain things and you talk about those things openly when you are interviewing with different companies, then you can kind of see how they read you and how you read them, and see if you'd be happy working there. But whenever I talk about myself professionally, I mentioned that I'm really passionate about the intersection of storytelling, narratives, and education. And then I talk about my background, whether it be like growing up in the border and teaching people to code there, or falling in love with computer science at 19 and knowing that there were so many people who didn't have access to computer science education until they're like more grown up. When a lot of my peers at this like small liberal arts in college had fallen in love with programming at like 2 years old because they grew up with like software engineer parents. And like, drawing those connections definitely helped me end up at Codecademy because I could speak to why I'm passionate about the mission of the company, speak to what kind of how it relates to how I see myself and my story as someone who ended up in the field. But like, I can maybe link to my website at the end, but my bio mentions all of this.
Okay. Thank you. So I got one more. Let me see if I can see where it came from. I'm sorry. If this is your question, please raise your hand because it's a good one. How do we deal with imposter syndrome? Self-taught, computer science degree, PhD in understanding the world. How do we deal with imposter syndrome?
I think the biggest thing I learned is it never really goes away, and maybe that's a good thing. Or it having a little bit of anxiety, right, pushes you to keep learning. So you learn how to manage it. Like I used to. I speak at conferences and meetups now, and it's fine. But up until like 4 or 5 years ago, every time I had to speak, even in front of a group of like 5 people, I used to break out in a sweat and like turn really red. And that went away, and I thought my imposter syndrome was gone and cured. But she knows it's not true, because every time before I speak at a thing, I'm like, oh no, everything, I need to throw away this talk, like I can't do it, it's terrible. I don't have a true answer. I don't know. I guess it's just like when I get in those moments, this is where it helps to have friends who are like, calm down. You're fine.
Supportive friends.
Affirming friends.
Affirming friends.
Who will remind you.
And I think just like in those moments, just remind yourself of like the last time you were able to achieve something that you thought you wouldn't be able to do. So it could be if you get imposter syndrome right before like a phone interview or something, remind yourself about the last time you were able to like debug your code, or just think about how far you've come along. And I think that's when it really helps, where it's like the first time I spoke at the conference that I talked about, I thought back to how like the year before I had like paid my own way in, like out of pocket, and like didn't know anyone in the room, and I walked into the room and was like, oh no, I'm speaking at this thing now, which was scary but also like reassuring. Yeah, and looking around and seeing like people I knew and stuff like that, it just reminded me like how far it come. So I think that's true for like all of us have like stories about progress. So
yeah, I think that point there about like giving yourself self-feedback about the good things is so important, because you don't focus on the good things that you do. It's so easy to focus only on the negative things that you got wrong and that you didn't do well, which sets you up for next time thinking, I'm not going to be able to do this. You expect that, and then you focus even harder on the things that you weren't able to do. So I think you have to like try to say, okay, what did I do right? And then just like repeat those things over to yourself over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. There's also self-empathy involved. Like when you catch yourself feeling like an imposter, like ask yourself, like, why am I feeling this way? Really get to the bottom of it, and then affirm yourself by your assumptions. Because a lot of the times, once you like articulate your thoughts, whether it be writing them down, you're like, that's not really true. Like I really do know how to code, or like I really do know what I'm talking about. And ask yourself, like, can I affirm myself? And if you can't, then like you can reach out to your support network, and or go learn that thing that's making you anxious that you don't know. And that can be very empowering.
Yeah, I think this goes back to like what John said earlier too, of just like a lot of overcoming or learning how to manage imposter syndrome is like learning how to be okay with not knowing something. So yeah, like over time, it's like you just learn to be more comfortable with like there's always stuff that I won't know, and that's okay, because that's exciting. That means there's more stuff to learn.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I think we're at time.
Cool.
Could probably ask a lot more questions. I appreciate so much of the interaction from everybody today. I appreciate you for coming and sharing your fabulous experience. Check out the links that I just dropped in the chat. One of them is to give us feedback on this event. Again, we want to do a lot more of these, and we want to make sure that they're meeting your needs. Are there any parting words? Oh, drop your LinkedIn profile in there. Yeah, because that'll be really interesting. We can give each other feedback. And I'll put another link to the pro community so that we can talk about that. Any last parting words before we sign off today?
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
I feel like I learned more about all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I can't wait to read the comments.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you.